Welcome to Midwest Dairy's Consumer Insights webinar. I am delighted you could join us as we explore Circana's recent cheese retail trends and product innovation that's driving growth. I am Maureen Windish, Midwest Dairy's Senior Manager of Insights and Analytics. As you may know, Midwest Dairy partners with a wide variety of premier market research firms. Tom Verheil and I will lead you through this webinar today. Tom is VP of Strategic Insights for Innova Market Insights. He has over 20 years of experience in the packaged goods reporting and analysis space. He is based in Freeport, New York, and he has experience in new product marketing and has been quoted by Bloomberg, Ad Age, The Wall Street Journal, and NPR. Tom has given presentations on new product trends at conferences globally and has a bachelor's degree in marketing from St. Bonaventure University and an MBA from State University of New York, Buffalo. I invite you to ask questions through the Q&A feature, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. And after the webinar, you will be sent a link to the presentation as well as the recording. So let's go ahead and get started. So for our agenda today, I will take you through the first part of the presentation, which focuses on the consumer mindset, as well as the recent Circana sales trends, and a forecast and outlook for cheese. And then Tom will pick up and talk about product innovation. So from a consumer perspective, these 5 balls, essentially, that consumers are juggling are the drivers that are driving food innovation. So these are the things that consumers typically say drive their choices at the shelf. Not surprising, enjoyment usually tops the list for most consumers, as well as affordability playing a huge role recently with inflation. Health and wellness, convenience also play a large role. And sustainability, while it's very important to some consumers, probably takes a back seat to these other drivers of choice at the shelf. In the Midwest Dairy region, we do a survey twice a year with consumers in our region. Most recently, this data comes from our March survey of over 1,000 consumers in our region. And 68% of them say that consumers that they love cheese. So we certainly have, a very high love of cheese in our region specifically, well over 50%. And that really bodes well for cheese sales in our region. Another key fact to keep in mind is 97% of households in the US purchase cheese. Obviously, that is an enormous number, and it's very difficult to grow cheese on top of this large number, but we are managing to do that. And that's what we're going to see in this presentation, is where that growth is coming from. So let's jump into the sales trends from Circana. These sales trends take us through July of 2024. For this presentation, I'm going to primarily focus on those year-to-date sales trends. And we can see that year-to-date cheese in total, on a volume basis, and these numbers are in pounds, grew 2.6% this past year, year-to-date. And that is a very healthy rate, especially when you consider trends prior. So last year, we only saw a growth in volume of 0.6%, and in the years prior, we had negative trends. So we are seeing a reverse of the negative trend and a healthy growth rate of 2.6% in the cheese category in total. What's driving that really is purchase frequency. As I mentioned on the previous slide, 97% of households purchase cheese. So it is difficult to grow that household penetration number. But what we are able to grow and have been seeing growth in is that frequency number. And that frequency currently, consumers report purchasing cheese 28.8 times per year. And that is a growth of 1.7% versus a year ago. So that frequency, getting consumers to think about adding cheese to their cart more frequently, is the brightest spot for the industry in terms of being able to grow cheese. Looking at the varieties of cheese, natural cheese is by far the largest segment in the cheese category, and it is what's driving growth. So growth is up 2.6% or 2.9% for natural cheese. And there are a number of cheese flavors that are seeing, especially strong growth. Mozzarella is growing 6.4% year to date. We're seeing string mozzarella growing 8.3% year to date, and fresh mozzarella growing 6.6%. So those are definitely areas of opportunity for the industry, but also if you just look across all of these different varieties, we are seeing growth across all of them. Even cheddar grew 0.2%, not tremendous growth, but it is nice to see that largest variety, which maybe had been hurting a little bit during this economic period, is coming back a bit, and it is a very important flavor for the cheese industry. We also are seeing growth in the processed cheese category, 2.2% growth. And really what's driving that growth is the pasteurized cheese segment, up 3.8%. So it's not the largest segment in the processed cheese category, but it is growing 3.8%, and it has been growing both on an annual basis and in the last 4 weeks. On the other hand, we are seeing contraction with the vegan type and the imitation cheese type, both contracting not only year to date, but on the 4-week trend and the 52-week trend as well. From a form perspective, these are the top forms are sliced, chunk, and shreds, both regular and fine. All 4 of those are growing, but especially we're seeing growth with that chunk variety and that slice variety. We're also on some of these smaller varieties, string cheese growing 7.5%, and part round growing an impressive 14.1% growth. From an outlet perspective, we did see that in the grocery environment, a nice healthy growth rate of 1.2%. But what's really driving the growth in cheese is the supercenters and club stores growing 4.5%, while we are seeing contraction in the C-store and the drug outlets. From an e-commerce perspective, kind of focusing here on natural cheese, we did see growth year to date on a dollar basis, 9.2%, and on a unit basis, 10.4%. And when looking across all the regions that Circana tracks, we are seeing growth across every region, and pretty healthy growth, and especially healthy growth within the southern region. So South Central growing 3.5%, and Southeast region growing 3.5% as well. Now we'll talk briefly about the cheese forecast. This forecast comes from Mintel and it incorporates Circana's InfoScan reviews. We can see in 2023 that cheese sales, again, this is dollar sales that we're looking at, exceeded the $31 billion mark. So that is a very large category in retail, obviously. And they are forecasting that sales growth would continue all the way through 2028 in a modest forecast. And that is based on the current prices today. So given that inflation is not as much of a concern, we will probably not see the growth rates that we've seen in the past, but we will see some growth. And those sales are forecasted to hold on to virtually all the pandemic gains. I will pass it on to Tom.
All right, thanks again for that introduction, Maureen. I appreciate it. We're going to have a nice discussion here and look at cheese product innovation in the United States. Again, my name is Tom Bierheil. I'm the VP of Strategic Insights North America for Innova Market Insights, and we're going to be looking at a lot of new product innovation data today from Innova Market Insights, as well as some data from Innova Consumer Surveys to get an idea about what American consumers care about when it comes to dairy products, when it comes to cheese, and some of the trends we talked about earlier. So Maureen is going to help me advance the slides here. So if we can go to the next slide, that would be great. All right, so we're going to kind of look at some of the product innovations and sectors that are driving the cheese category forward, kind of looking at this from the perspective of new product innovation. So if we can go to the next slide, that would be great. So, all right. So this is a nice look at dairy product innovation from the Innova New Products database. So just to explain what we're looking at here, Innova covers cheese product introductions within the dairy product category. And that category covers a lot of different sectors within dairy, including things like butter, cream and creamers, milk products, yogurt, as well as non-dairy yogurt and non-dairy milk substitute products, things like soy milk and so on and so forth. So that 42%, actually the 42% share that we're looking at there is the cheese market's kind of footprint within the dairy sector overall. So within dairy, cheese products account to nearly half of the new product innovation as dairy is coming from cheese products and so on and so forth. So looking at the, that's represented by the bar graph. If you look at the line graph, that's looking at how the new product innovation has gone when it comes to cheese in the United States for these half-year periods, beginning with the first half of 2021 and ending with the first half of 2024. So it's really been kind of a, looking at the innovation over the past 3-year period or so here. We're kind of back where we started because new product innovation in cheese, at least for the first half of 2024, is kind of where we were in the first half of 2021. But if you look at the new product innovation trends over the complete year periods here, 2021 to 2023, you're going to notice something quite interesting. New product launches for cheese products, we're looking at an 8% compound annual growth rate for innovation in cheese. And you look at that relative to dairy, cheese innovation is growing at a much faster pace than new product innovation in dairy, which is a way of saying that innovation in sectors like yogurt, in sectors like butter and margarine and spreads and so on, is not keeping pace with what we're seeing in cheese. So next slide, please. All right, so within the dairy sector, we're looking at cheese product innovation here at Innova Market Insights. We divide cheese product innovation up into 6 subcategories. You're looking at those 6 subcategories here. And we're looking at really where innovation has gone in these 6 sectors, comparing the first half of 2023 with the first half of 2024. So we have a like-to-like comparison. So really the growth that we're seeing in these 2 periods we're looking at, a lot of that growth is coming in processed cheese. If you look at the market share there, processed cheese, it has grown quite a bit for the first half of 2024 versus the first half of 2023. Now the other sector we're identifying here, semi-hard and hard cheese, a little bit of a decline in new product innovation there for the first half of 2024, but you can see that that sector is very important when it comes to new product innovation in the United States. So looking at some of the other subsectors here, subcategories, we're going to look at this a little bit later in the Innova part of today's presentation. Definitely seeing some declines in non-dairy cheese. That's an interesting area. We are seeing some increases in fresh and cream cheese. So that's kind of been a bright spot for cheese. Now looking at flavors here, we kind of have a call out to cheddar. And that's something that Maureen noted in the earlier presentation, looking at how cheddar is holding its own and growing. Now when it comes to new product launches, we're definitely seeing some growth there to the point where cheddar, at least for American cheese introductions, I should say cheese introductions in America, that's probably a better way to phrase it. The footprint there is almost up to a quarter of those new product innovations for the first half of 2024. Now, where the innovations are coming from, definitely a major focus on private labels. If you look at the top companies ranked by the number of new product launches for the first half of 2024, 2 of the 3 leaders there are private labels, Food Lion as well as H-E-B. first branded maker is Kraft Heinz. And there's definitely a focus on snackability, and that's something we'll cover a little bit later in the Innova presentation. You can certainly see that with a Food Lion product that we're focused on here. Next slide, please. So we also want to make note of some of the larger mega trends that are driving innovation in cheese and dairy products overall. So Innova has kind of a mega trends team that is their sole focus in life is to look out on the landscape and identify trends that have the capability of kind of influencing new product innovations over the longer term. So for us, that's the next 3 to 5 years. And we're really pointing out some of these major trends here. Health pressures. Healthcare is very expensive, and consumers are doing whatever they can to live healthier lives. We've seen pressure there to lose weight, weight management, the whole GLP-1 concept. This is certainly tying into health pressures. Environmental concerns. Consumers are concerned about the environment, extreme environmental events, hurricanes, extreme rainfall, climate change, and so on and so forth. That's a top of mind issue with consumers, not only in the United States, but globally. Economic uncertainty, you see the numbers there, 3 in 4 consumers are concerned about what we call the cost of living crisis. That's a translation for inflation. That's something that definitely is influencing things, as well as changing occasions. We saw this during COVID-19, where consumers, not by choice, but by dictate, kind of had to change their consumption occasions and enjoy more of those occasions at home. And the effect of inflation has also changed that, so consumers are maybe doing more consumption occasions at home. And bottom line here is that roughly 6 in every 10 consumers say that these they're making purchase changes, based on these global issues of concern. Next slide, please. So getting back to that call out a couple slides ago, where we noted that processed cheese innovation is this is an area we're seeing a lot of growth. This slide really documents what Innova is seeing. And when it comes to processed cheese, I did want to define that because our definition here at Innova for processed cheese is probably going to be different what your definition might be. For Innova, processed cheese is cheese made with a combination of natural cheese and added ingredients like emulsifiers, flavor enhancers, stabilizers, and more. So if you're looking at the footprint for processed cheese innovation in the United States for the periods noted here, the big thing you're going to note is that innovation in processed cheese has nearly doubled between 2021 and the first half of 2024. So these products are affordable, they're long-lasting, and they're popular with American consumers. So if you're looking at some of the companies that are driving innovation here, some of the same names we saw earlier, especially with Kraft Heinz. But if you look at the product innovation there, kind of a nod to some products that have been around for a while, certainly Kraft Singles, although coming in with flavored product introductions there to kind of shake things up a little bit, the same with Velveeta. One other thing I want to note here with the Kraft Singles is note that it's made with real dairy. Note that call out, because a little bit later in the Innova presentation, we'll be referencing that as a key claim that companies are making and consumers care about. Next slide. So we're going to go through a series of trends here at Innova Market Insights that kind of look at what Innova is seeing in the landscape of the cheese marketplace, beginning with health and wellness. So let's look at that. Next slide, please. All right. So each year here at Innova, we run something called the Innova Category Survey. This category survey asks consumers in 35 countries their consumption behavior when it comes to the product categories that Innova covers. And what we're looking at here is dairy cheese consumption. We ask a very simple question. Have you increased, decreased, or not changed your consumption of cheese in this case? So the good news here is that more consumers, a higher percentage of consumers say they're increasing cheese consumption. That's what the 16% represents, versus decreasing cheese consumption. So drilling down, we also ask consumers if you're increasing consumption, why? If you're decreasing consumption, why are you doing that? So we want to find out what are the motivating factors here. So the big factor when it comes for increasing consumption of cheese is that consumers see cheese as being healthful. That's the big thing driving consumption. That's a good place to be. That's kind of the catbird seat where you want to be these days because consumers care a lot about their health. Taste, cheese is craveable. So this is something that's also driving consumption, and lifestyle choices are also helping to drive consumption. Now, a couple of factors here that did not really figure in any of the equation when it comes to cheese is change in my budget. So economics is not necessarily a factor that may be, responsible for an increase in dairy cheese consumption. So it's kind of good to see that. Now, when it comes to health, you see the call out here, 1 in 4 consumers, Americans, say they're being more proactive in preventing health issues. And the big factor there is weight management. That's something that consumers care about and so on and so forth. Now, the product example we're showing here, the Kraft Natural Cheese product, if you're talking about health, some interesting health claims for the product, but notice they're not on the front of the packaging. 0 grams of lactose, no artificial ingredients. That's a classic clean label claim, by the way. No high fructose corn syrup, added sugar, so on and so forth. So it's interesting to see that those claims are on the packaging, but maybe not on the front of the packaging, so not to detract from the focus on the flavor focus for this product. Next slide, please. All right, so here's where it gets very interesting. We're actually diving into some of the new product, the health claims that companies are making for their new product launches. Innova tracks hundreds of different claims that companies are making for their food and beverage products. So we're really focusing on 3 different buckets of claims here at Innova Market Insights. We call them health passive claims. These are the classic high, low, no, and free type product claims, like gluten-free. That's a big claim, big one there that you can see. We're also focusing on what we call health passive claims. These are your more functional food type claims. So if a product has probiotics, that would fall into that bucket. And finally, choice claims. These are situations where consumers are choosing to be vegan, vegetarian, live a kosher lifestyle, pursue plant-based products, and more. All right. So looking at the top 10 claims for cheese, we see some very interesting developments here. Number 1, pretty decent increase in products saying they're gluten-free. Now, gluten-free is not a new claim. It's been around for a long, long time, but it is something that matters to consumers. And 10 pp, what that what that references is there is a 10 percentage point difference in the response for, not response, but the percentage of products that are making a gluten-free claim for the first half of 2024 versus full year 2023. The other claims are also interesting here. Other fast-growing claims, high in source of protein. Protein is a macronutrient that consumers care a lot about, and also natural. That's kind of an interesting claim there too that suggests a product that's less processed. All right, so you can see where some other claims kind of stack up here, especially like a claim like vegan, maybe plant-based, another couple claims that coming in a little bit sluggish for the first half of 2024 when it comes to cheese launches. Now, the product we're focused on here, an interesting Icelandic cheese snack. Notice the claims that are made on the front of the package here. Gluten-free, so that's very much in line with one of our top trends there. 15 grams of protein per serving. That's also a very interesting claim there. The product is also high in calcium. It says it's rich in A2 protein too. Now, I did take some time and look at the company's website to see why that matters and so on and so forth. A2 is a more digestible protein, or that is the claim to fame for it. But the product itself really doesn't get into those particular details, but it is interesting nonetheless. Next slide, please. All right, so this is kind of an interesting slide too, because we're looking at kind of a tale of 2 worlds here. In orange, we're looking at the results from the Innova Category Survey 2024. All right, so we're asking consumers, what are the most influential health claims when you're purchasing dairy cheese? And you can see the pecking order there. Consumers care a lot about products with real ingredients or natural. We saw that earlier with the Kraft Singles product that says it's made with real dairy. All right, high in source of protein, that matters a lot too. No artificial flavors and colors. That's a classic clean label claim. No low and reduced fat. A little bit less caring for that. That's something fats image has improved remarkably over the past few years. It was bad for you at one point. Now it's good for you. Non-GMO, that's a claim that's been out there for some time. So the claims that are in light blue are the actual claims that are appearing on new product introductions. We're looking for the prevalence of these claims for the first half of 2024. So we mentioned earlier the big one, gluten-free, but look at where high in source of protein is. That matters to consumers. Companies are picking up on that. They're flagging their products as being a good source of protein. You definitely see that with products like cottage cheese, for instance, and so on and so forth. Natural, that's a claim that can be a little bit troublesome because products that are making a claim that the product is natural or all natural, there have been lawsuits that have sued companies making those claims, so it's a little bit more muted innovation there. You can see where the other claims come in. So we're ready to go. The next slide, this may be a build slide, by the way. So, yep, keep clicking as we get through this. Yes. All right, there we go. So what we're looking at here is we're kind of taking a deeper dive into innovation for products, making cheese launches, making a claim that they're high in protein or a good source of protein. So we said earlier that protein is kind of the macronutrient of the decade, and this sort of backs it up. Going back to 2021, if you look at the share of products claiming to be high in protein, a source of protein, cheese products, a little bit more than 1 in 10 products are making that claim. We're up to the point where that is nearly doubled looking at the first half of 2024. Now, looking at some actual examples of new product innovation there, we mentioned that cottage cheese is something we're seeing a lot of focus on recently. I think the New York Post did a recent article on cottage cheese saying it's the new avocado. That consumers are seeking it out because it's high in protein. The product referenced here, 12 grams of protein per serving, so that's a good amount of protein. The other product from H-E-B, the snack bars, more of a snack type product, but notice the call out there, 5 grams of protein per serving, so that you can snack without guilt. All right, so you can go on to the next slide. That's good. All right, so this particular slide kind of takes a look at where we are with dairy-free cheese. This has been kind of an area that's been a growth area recently, but we wanted to kind of put things into perspective. And again, we're looking at some numbers here that come from the Innova Category Survey for 2024. So let's kind of unpack this and see what we're talking about here. So looking at dairy cheese, and again, this is Innova data. We did see some earlier numbers from Circana that had a different number for consumers purchasing cheese, but we're looking at an Innova number here, 62%, so roughly 2/3 of American consumers say they purchased cheese in the last year. So that's a very high number. 16%, a number we saw earlier, say they've increased cheese consumption over the past year. So those numbers are both good and they're both healthy. Now, where does plant-based cheese come in? All right, so only about 7% of consumers, so fewer than 1 in 10, say that they have purchased plant-based cheese in the last year. That's a relatively small number. However, 36% of consumers say they've increased their consumption of plant-based cheese. So those consumers that have tried plant-based cheese have definitely increased their consumption of plant-based cheese, and that's something to keep an eye on. Now, looking at some of the innovations that we've kind of selected here to give you an idea of some of the new products that Innova is seeing in the marketplace. Probably the more interesting of the two products here is the Good Planet product there, the smoked Gouda cheese slices. And the interesting thing with this one, company behind it says that this particular product is one that is made with a superfood. So it is made with olive oil. So that's kind of a unique approach, kind of buttresses the fact that it's plant-based with an ingredient that consumers have some degree of trust and some degree of naturalness with it. So next slide, please. So the second trend we're going to look at today is a trend we're hearing a lot about these days, and it kind of ties in with that kind of mega trend we talked about earlier, health of the planet, where consumers are concerned about climate change and how the planet is doing. So let's talk a little bit about sustainability. All right. So sustainability is definitely gaining attention with consumers. You see the numbers there. 1 in 5, nearly 1 in 5 consumers, so just under 20% of American consumers say that if they were, given the keys to a company and asked to be the head of new product development, an unlikely development, but we can always dream, that they would put these environmental factors, including sustainability and kind of cutting down on food waste, they would make that a huge priority. So that's an interesting finding. Just to put that into a global perspective, though, if you look at this globally, the percentage of consumers that say the same thing is much higher globally. I believe the percentage is 26%. So it is somewhat higher than it is for American consumers. Now, looking at the innovation here, the Crystal Farms innovation, one way to kind of stress to consumers that you care a little bit more about the environment and so on and so forth is to kind of have a local tie-in. So that is what the company is doing there, noting that the source of their the ingredients for the Snack Cubes product come from Midwest dairy farmers. Now, the other call out here I want to kind of note is the fact that over a third of U.S. consumers say they always pay attention to sustainability claims on product packaging. Now, what's kind of interesting with this is that there is a very big difference between consumers by generation and age. Younger consumers, especially millennial consumers, are much more likely to pay attention to these claims than older consumers like baby boomers. So that's one thing you need to be aware of. Next slide, please. So looking at some specific sustainability claims and so on, we're kind of calling out the percentage of new cheese launches that have recyclable claims, pretty high percentage there. But recyclable claims and the whole issue of recyclability is an area that has become somewhat controversial. I think what's more interesting on this slide is the Chow Creamery product there, the plant-based slices product. If you look at that product, next to the non-GMO project certified logo, there's kind of a leaf logo there about the fact that this product is carbon zero and carbon neutral. Now, the company behind that product is Maple Leaf Foods. And in 2019, they became the first major carbon neutral food company at that time. How do they do this? Well, they have managed to find ways to cut carbon emissions, but they also do purchase carbon offsets. So it's kind of a combination of approaches there. Now, the other thing we want to note on this slide that's also important to put things into a little bit of more perspective is that consumers are looking for different ways that can kind of key them into products that are more sustainable and more environmentally friendly. And carbon emissions have turned into something that consumers are definitely paying more attention to. 44%, I gotta go back to the back slide, the prior slide. We just skipped the slide here. There we go, we're back. For carbon emissions, 44% of American consumers say that this is the most important factor when determining how sustainable a product is. So, all things being equal, that sounds like a big number until you look at the global number where 59% of consumers globally feel the same thing. So American consumers may be a little bit behind the curve there, but this is an issue that they do care about. Next slide, please. Okay. All right. So another area that American consumers really care deeply about is animal welfare claims. And this certainly kind of falls in the whole banner of sustainability and more. So if you're looking at the new product launches, more than 1 in 4 cheese launches in the U.S. for the period 2023 to the first half of 2024 are making some sort of an ethical animal related claim. And if you see the claims here, they can be, to give you an idea of what those claims might be. They might be claims around growth hormones, RBST, and so on, as well as grass-fed. That's a claim that is increasingly popular. The good news here is that a significant percentage of American consumers, 58%, say they're willing to pay extra for food and beverage products that are devoted to solving animal cruelty issues here. And if you divide that up and look at the actual survey data, I believe the number was 29% for the consumers that are most enthusiastic about that. And that response is much higher than for any of the other environmental issues that we tracked here at Innova, including things like plastic waste was another one that was had a big response. And I think another one here was actually food waste. Certainly animal cruelty, animal welfare is an issue that does matter to consumers. Next slide, please. Affordability. So we're going to look into this. Affordability has become a key issue with consumers suffering from sticker shock when shopping for products in the grocery store, and you can kind of see it here. How this is playing out with regard to cheese is we're definitely seeing the footprint for new product launches in cheese growing for private label. So for the first half of 2024, private label is accounting for nearly 4 of every 10 new product launches, 38% to be exact. That's up from 32% in 2021. So that's a pretty healthy gain. And if you're looking at companies that are driving that, you can certainly see some recognizable names on the list here. These are cheese launches by we call them ultimate holding companies. You could consider them corporate affiliates and so on and so forth. So Ahold, Aldi, Kroger, HEB, and more are on the list of companies that are paving the way and increasing their new product innovation there. Next slide, please. So this also kind of dovetails into one of the reasons why non-dairy cheese has lost some traction. So you can see that loss of traction in the number here, that 11% was the footprint for non-dairy cheese within all cheese launches in the U.S. as recently as the first half of 2023. First half of 2024, that's down to 9%. A big reason for that is pricing and cost. This may be one of the more interesting slides in the presentation. If you look at the weighted average price of dairy cheese versus non-dairy cheese, there is a huge difference there. One thing we do here at Innova is that when we report new products, we're also picking up the price that those products are selling for, and we kind of equate that to a number of metrics that you can compare like to like here. So price per kilogram for dairy cheese, looking at that, $24 per kilogram is much less than that $37 per kilogram for non-dairy cheese. Excuse me just a second here. So that's an over 50% price difference there for non-dairy cheese versus dairy cheese. If you're looking at some of the reasons why consumers say they've reduced or decreased consumption of non-dairy cheese, budget reasons certainly figures in that equation, as does a reduction in new product launches. So both of those factors are kind of coming into play here. Now, the product we're featuring here, the Chipotle cheddar style product. This particular product, relatively high retail price there, $11 US. It's made with cashews, and cashews are not necessarily an inexpensive ingredient. So kind of an idea to give you an idea of what kind of innovation is Innova seeing in this sector. Next slide, please. All right, so snackification, another trend we'll take a look at. Quite a bit happening when it comes to new product innovation here. Next slide. So During the course of running Innova's category survey, we asked consumers what time of day they typically consume the product in question. So we're looking at the results here for dairy cheese. Not surprisingly, most of the consumption comes at lunchtime or at dinner time. However, if you look at the peach or orange colored bars there, there's a lot of opportunities here for snacking, especially afternoon snacking and even evening and night snacking. That tends to be a time of day when snacking becomes more indulgent. That's when chocolate and ice cream consumption tend to go up. And one reason we're seeing this growth in snackability for cheese is we're seeing a lot more new product innovation when it comes to easy to snack cheese formats like the cheese cubes and chunks you see that are illustrated here. Next slide, please. All right, so looking at where the innovation is coming from, the types of kind of convenience-oriented cheeses, certainly shreds are a big part of that. Sliced cheese, cubes, and bars are all convenience-oriented types of cheese. And you can see the percentage of cheese products that are making some sort of a convenience-related claim. But on the right-hand part of this slide, you're really getting into looking at where the innovation is growing with regard to formats that are especially convenient for consumers. Bars, that's a 4x increase in new product innovation from 2023 to the first half of 2024. So these bars are accounting for a 2.2% share of all cheese product introductions for the first half of 2024. Cubes, that's a doubling in new product innovation between 2023 and the first half of 2024. So again, these snack cubes are easy. All you have to do is open the package up. A lot of the packaging is resealable, as you see with the Pepper Jack Snack Cubes product illustrated here. Next slide, please. All right, so this kind of alludes back to what we saw earlier with some of the primary drivers for why consumers are consuming cheese. It tastes good, it's craveable, it's healthy, it's convenient. These are all factors that kind of are driving that focus on cheese as a snack. It is a type of snack that consumers tend to search out for and seek out healthier alternatives. And that really works well for cheese since it tends to be naturally high in protein. You certainly see that with a Wisps product there, 10 grams of protein, a product that is an easy substitute for products that are not so good for you, things like potato chips and tortilla chips and so on. Next slide, please. All right, so some key takeaways from today. Health, that certainly is something that scores when it comes to cheese products and cheese product innovation. Consumers looking to increase consumption of protein, calcium, and other nutrients that cheese may have. Sustainability, that's an area that we're going to continue to see more new product innovation, especially around carbon emissions, animal welfare, and more. Affordability and snackification are other areas that we expect to see a lot of future new product innovation when it comes to cheese. Next slide. All right, so that concludes the Innova part of today's webinar. And if you want to reach out to us here at Innova or myself, you've got my email address located right there. Love to hear from you and so on and so forth. And you can check out Innova on the internet at the addresses provided here. Thanks so much.
Hey, Tom.
Yes.
I didn't see any questions coming through the Q&A, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to type that in. But I will ask you a question if you don't mind.
Sure.
So throughout the presentation, we saw a lot of growth for claims, actually gluten-free above protein, which was a little unusual, right? At least in my mind. I think that there's just been, maybe cheese was slow to that whole gluten-free trend. Are we still seeing a lot of gluten-free claims showing up on other categories outside of dairy?
Yeah, we are. I mean, gluten-free has been a claim that's been around and it's been quite common for at least the past couple of decades. There have been some, increases and decreases based on certain dietary trends that have kind of come and gone. I mean, the keto trend, something was probably a little bit stronger recently, maybe tailing off a little bit now, but um, consumers are increasingly encountering dietary restrictions where consumers are trying to avoid this, that, or the other thing when they're consuming food products due to food sensitivities and food allergies. And I think that maybe one reason we're seeing gluten-free still strong after a couple decades is that younger generations may be suffering from some of these food sensitivities at a higher rate than consumers might have 10, 20, 30 years ago. So hopefully that explains that. All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, this has been a great presentation. We really appreciate your time and putting all of these trends together, and certainly lines up with the trends we're seeing from Circana, so it makes a lot of sense. If anybody has any questions, feel free, like I said, to put them in the Q&A section. Also wanted to let you know that you can contact either Tom, if you're curious about what they are offering in terms of services, but also you can contact any one of us at Midwest Dairy for additional support. My contact information, Maureen Windish, again, happy to help you with whatever needs you have in terms of insights. We also have Martha Kemper. She is VP of Dairy Experience Business Development. Also happy to help you. And Mitch, he is really in charge, VP of Agricultural Affairs, also works a lot with processors. We are all very happy to help you with whatever needs you might have in understanding the dairy industry better, and especially, follow up from this presentation. There will be a quick survey that we ask you to do when you exit from the webinar, and hopefully you have a minute to fill that out. That would be really helpful. And as we are developing future webinars and what your needs are. So thank you so much. Oh, I did see a question pop in. Question here. Will the presentation be sent out? Yes, definitely. It'll be posted to our website, the presentation as well as the recording. And then we did get another question. When you were talking about new product launches in your data, how is that defined? Is it only truly new products, or does it include new packaging, reformulation, relaunches, etc.?
Yeah, that's a good question. It does include reformulated products those products have to flag that aspect on the front of the packaging and whatnot to let us know that the formulation is new. It does include new sizes, packages, and more. So it is quite a broad definition of new product. Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we will wrap it up here. And thanks again for attending, and hope to see you on future webinars. Take care.